Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today you guys are going to be actually coming along with me as I interview one of my clients that I've been working with for many years. He's actually one of my commercial clients. I do a lot of interior design stuff for him, architectural type of photography. I figured why not bring you guys along and hear from my client what it is to work with a photographer, what is it that they're looking for, how it affects them hiring them, the things that they like, they don't like, how to work with them on site, the preparation of it, and then the production of things, the whole thing. I think, I wish I had this kind of information when I was starting, because just kind of getting this behind the scenes input from the actual client themselves, I think will really help to understand how we can be a better photographer. And if we want to work for these type of clients, what we can do to really stand out so they can see us and give us a chance to work for one of their potential jobs in the future. So sit back and take a look as we listen to this interview and just kind of take a deep dive into these questions and answers. So my first question to him was, what were the key factors that led you to choose a photographer for this project?
Well, this is a really significant project. We have a lot of companies that participated in the showcase home, and we needed to make sure that we got it photographed in a way that would be not only beautiful for people that visit our website, but also for the manufacturers and the way they want to present their products. And I've worked with Fraser for probably over 10 years, have a great comfort level that he's going to be able to get exactly what I need. And I feel like even if I'm not on site, he and I can talk and I can get what I need and not have to worry about it, because we have limited time that we have availability to get the shots, and I can't take the risk of having somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
I want you guys to pay attention to what he said there. The comfort of hiring me to know that I'm just going to get the job done no matter what it is. When you guys are, getting into this field, you want to make sure that you can relay that to your clients and make them feel that way, right? That you're going to do whatever it takes to get the job done, that they can hire you. You're the professional. On site, you look like you have the talent, the skill, the experience to tackle on this project. And you don't look like you're questioning everything. Like, of course, you want to ask questions to make sure you get the job done right, depending on what the scope of the work is. But you don't want to, have to go to your client all the time, because then that's just going to make you look like you don't know what you're doing. And, especially as a photographer, they're hiring you for your expertise, your creative eye, your vision, your talent, being able to capture these spaces in the best light and produce these amazing images for them to use for their own purposes. So the other question is, did you look at multiple photographers? If so, what made you decide on the one over the others?
No. The only reason I would have not been able to use Fraser is if schedule didn't work for what I was trying to do. But he always seems to make time for me, and I'm very loyal.
And that just goes to show, like, when you kind of have those clients that you've built up that rapport with, that relationship with. I know for me, at least, for those specific clients, I'll do whatever it takes to kind of open up my schedule to make it happen for them. And they know that. They know that I will kind of move things to make things happen so that we can get their project done, no matter what time of the year it is, right? Like, so it's good to have that rapport with certain clients. And obviously, that's something that takes some time to build. But once you have that, it's great, because they have the trust to know that, hey, I know if I call Fraser, 8 months from now, I'm pretty sure that I can get this job locked in the calendar so we can get it done. And vice versa, I know that I can expect a job for them throughout the year, multiple times in the year, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen for them so they're on the calendar and we can get this ball rolling. Next question. So what qualities or skills do you think are essential in a photographer for an A&D project?
Yeah, I think, as I was saying, we have limited time, not only on the window that we have to be able to shoot, but also the time of day, because these projects look fantastic as the sun goes down. There's a lot to do and a little time to get it, and a lot of places in the home that we want to shoot to capture that magic. And I know from working with Fraser, he can make that happen. So that's super important to me, because it's really difficult to do a do-over. So we have to get it the first time and make sure that it's great. And every time he exceeds my expectations.
Many times when you're working with these client projects, there's no like okay, if you mess up, we're going to come back again. It doesn't happen. At least for this particular client, for this project, we have a limited amount of time to get all the media we need captured before either the home is sold, homeowners move in, parties move in, whatever it is, right? That timing is critical, and being able to make sure that you are professional enough to handle the time requirements to get the entire project shot is very important for our clients, because they know that, okay, no matter how big the scope of the project is, we have the skill, the professionalism to handle it. You know, I've built my career with policies, procedures, with strategies and techniques and workflows that allow me to, you know, handle these big projects and know how to, you know, tackle them. So that way, when I'm on site, I'm not overwhelmed. I know the time frame and I know what I need to do. Kind of like when you're, you know, doing a movie for Hollywood. You know, there's a schedule, there's a time, there's everything has its own thing. So that way you can get through the whole entire project and reach the finish line before the time's up, right? So we got to make sure that we pay attention to that. We can't just think like, hey, if I mess up, no big deal. No, it is a big deal. If we mess up, that's a possibility that they may never hire us again. Next question. How important is it for the photos to match the brand identity of the builder, designer, and developer?
I think it's really important. For one thing, everything has to be cohesive, the way that it's shot, so that when somebody's viewing that, either about one particular product or the entire house, it's got to look like it was all within the same photographer and the same skill set, because otherwise it's disjointed, and even if you don't recognize that, it just looks off. So that was really important for us to make sure that we were telling that story in a way that really elevated all the products in here to the best they can be. It's a beautiful home, and the products individually are beautiful, but the way Fraser captures the moment makes it look even better than it's really the sum of the parts, I guess. It comes out just spectacular, and people are always just really going, wow, that is some great photography. And that's really what we're aiming for. We want, you know, the manufacturers that participate here, we want them to be able to show their products in their best and highest use, where people, it's aspirational, it's inspirational, it's all those things that make somebody say, wow, that is beautiful, and that, you know, that product looks spectacular. The fireplace, for example, really is something that maybe they hadn't considered before, but the way that it's presented makes them go, gosh, that fits in a $16 million home, which is fantastic.
He worded that perfectly. All right, next question. What aspects of the home did you want the photographer to highlight the most?
This place is amazing architecturally, and it's a very view-centered home from pretty much everywhere. So we obviously, that's the star of the show, to be able to get a product in the home and the design and architecture, but the way that kind of plays with the view and the outside. And obviously that's lighting and time of day make a huge impact on that. So we want to try to maximize that, because obviously it elevates everything. And I don't know, you know, I can explain that about what I want, but I need Fraser to say, okay, I got it. And so that's pretty fun, because I don't have to spend a lot of time. He knows, kind of, after working with us, we've done a lot of projects together, and it's great, because I don't feel like there's any risk in, you know, missing something or some miscommunication. That's super key, because if you go through the shot and it just doesn't look quite right, you're gonna miss the sun, and then that's a problem. So in this place, you know, the view is everything.
All right, next up. Do you prefer a specific style of photography? Example, bright and airy, dark and moody, dramatic lighting, editorial. Let's see what he has to say.
I would say that you know, we want that to be an emotional shot, and the way that you use light, it's very evocative to that. So I don't even know how I would explain, you know, what it is that I want. I just know when I see it, when you do it, it's what I want. Case in point, there's a spot in here where there's a wet bar. The stairs are above it, and there's some artwork on the wall. And I thought, those stairs are awesome, and that should be the center point of the shot. And they are beautiful, and they're great on their own. But you took the shot of the the artwork and the wet bar and the way that you had the lighting arranged, man, it was so dramatic. And I would have never guessed that spot would have translated into something that I would say, wow, that might be one of my top 5 images that on the deal, just because I didn't see it, but you did. And that's, really when you have professionals involved to try to execute on your vision, you have to have that kind of confidence that you can see what I can't and give me things that are going to make everything better. And that was fantastic.
All right, next question. How much creative input do you expect from the photographer versus following specific guidelines?
I rely basically on you. I tell you what we want to do, what we're trying to achieve, and then I let you process it and figure out how we're going to get there. And like the wet bar shot, it's just like every time I'm like, man, I wouldn't have thought of that, and that looks fantastic. So that's really key. I think you got to get that relationship going where you understand me, and then you can take that and put your professional arms around it and give it back to me in a bow. And I go, oh, perfect.
Yeah, pretty much, they just want to have trust in you so that when they give you the project, you can just take it and complete it. That's it. Simple as that. They hire you to do a job. You do the job, but you always over exceed their expectations. All right, next up. Are there any must-have shots or angles that you always request photographed?
Well, we're fortunate in the fact that a lot of projects that we do are view-oriented, so I typically want to incorporate that. And the way you shoot to blend indoors and outdoors is fantastic because there's always that component to the projects we do. And I suppose it's where most of our projects are in the West, where that's just part of the deal is indoor-outdoor living. But that is something that we always want because we want to make people feel like that is expanded beyond the boundaries of the square footage. And you always bring the outside in and make that really seamless. And I think, to me, that's super attractive as somebody that would be interested in that photography, because that's kind of living that we do here. So when I see the outside and the inside kind of meld together, I go, that just feels homey, right? That's nice.
It's funny because we as a photographer, we need to make sure that we know how to translate that. What he just said, I want to make sure that you incorporate those views and whatnot into the spaces. When a client says that, we need to understand, okay, that tells me when I do my compositions, I have to either, compress the space so that background comes into the foreground and it looks like it's actually there in what you see with your real eyes. These are all important things that, that's what they're hiring us, right? Like when they tell us these things, they tell us, hey, I want to make sure that view is dominant in these compositions. Then we can translate and we know with our skills, with our tools, what we need to do to make that happen for our client. All right, next question. How important is it for the photographer to capture different times of day? Daylight, twilight, night shots?
I think super important because I'm a morning person, so I love morning light, and I really like the sunrise, just magical, right? I love that, and I always feel like not a lot of people around getting the sunrise, right? So I appreciate that. But then the other side of it is a lot of people are nighttime focused, or obviously the sunset is absolutely beautiful here, and at this particular location, the night views are phenomenal. So I think it was great to be able to get the whole array of different times of the day here, because it also shows the talent of the architects and the designer and the builder to be able to capture a home that works in all those angles and all those times a day. So I think that's really important, because you want to have a home where it feels like you're not missing out on anything, particularly with this view. So super important, I think, to get that.
Many times on these commercial shoots, it's either multiple day affairs, but at the bare minimum, it's a full day affair. I'm talking about early morning light all the way to afternoon and finishing at nighttime or twilight, whatever it is. Because many times, at least for this particular client, they want different types of light and mood. Like there's a lot of lighting design built into this project. So obviously in the daytime, you can't really capture that lighting design, right? Because it's the sunlight just overpowers that, right? Sometimes there is still ways to capture that even in the daytime, but obviously beautiful design lighting in homes really showcase better at twilight, at night, sunset, those type of times. So sometimes we're reshooting same angles over again just so that the client has that ability to show like, hey, the different moods and different features of what the like a lighting does for the project, right? This home had a fireplace that had this like steam that glows orange that looks like fire, but it's actually like this oil steam. It's pretty cool. In the daytime, you really couldn't see that much. At nighttime, it really popped out. And these are things we have to be aware of. If a client's telling me, hey, this specific item here where we need to highlight, I need to also be the judge of, all right, is that going to look good in daytime, or is it better to shoot that when the sun's lower or when the sun's gone, right? So these are all conscious decisions we as a professional photographer need to keep in mind when our client is asking for certain things. It requires timing of the day, and also strategically, like maybe blocking light, things like that, so that way we can capture those things that they need for their project. All right, next question. Do you require both wide angle, vignettes, and detail shots? What balance do you prefer?
Yeah, I think we do, because obviously we want to create an opportunity for somebody that sees the images to get a feel for the house. And that's important with just getting the shots. But then we have manufacturer partners that want their products to be seen also. And there's a lot of detail shots that are necessary when you want to do that deep dive. If you're somebody that's looking at the thing saying, man, that is a sweet faucet. What is that? Let me look into that. So I think both of those for our purposes are super important, because you get the overall feel and then you can drill down into the details.
I'll give you a quick little tip. When it comes to capturing a feel of a space, usually it's something that relates more to what we see in real life. When we see in real life, our eyes actually see in 50 millimeters. So with that in mind, if you kind of shoot your compositions at the minimum starting at 50 millimeters, you can start to capture more of that feel of the different spaces in the home to translate into those photos, right? Sometimes when we shoot really wide angle, 16, 17 millimeters, whatever, it doesn't really convey that feel. So keep that in mind when you guys are out there shooting and composing. Start off at 50 millimeters if you really want to get that feel of the space, along with obviously the lighting and timing and things like that. But if you want to make it feel like what you see in real life, jump on that 50 millimeters and really take you there. All right, next question. What level of post-processing do you expect? Natural edits versus high-end retouching?
Well, I think we want it to look as natural as possible. And Fraser always pulls that off the way he brackets. And I don't understand all the ins and outs of that, but I know that every time he gives us an image, it looks fantastic. A lot of our projects are still in the midst of what the builder calls a punch list, fixing things that are still needing a little touch-ups and so forth. So they're not perfect. And so Fraser will fix things in post where you didn't even notice that, which I think, that's important. We don't want to create a situation where we're fooling people, making something look like it's not. But when there are anomalies that would normally not be there, it's a something on the window or a wire hanging down or whatever, that really want that to be clean so that there's no distraction on the image.
Yeah, that's so important. Like sometimes these projects that I do for him, they're still kind of being completed, right? So when I come in, it's almost done, but sometimes not all the spaces are completed. So there's, like you said, wires hanging, things like that. So this is where, whether it's you doing it yourself or hiring an editor out there, that you get that done for your client, that you're not delivering an image that like has paint splashes or cracks in the wall or dust and debris, and you're giving them polished, clean images. Now, if you're just documenting a space and that's all you're there to do is just document, they don't care, that's a different story. But if you're trying to give them marketing pieces that they can use and their parties use, you got to keep that in mind, that even though the project isn't unfinished, you want to do your best to still make it true to what's there in real life, but clean it up so it's nicely polished so that they have something usable to use for their purposes. All right, next question. Have you seen a direct impact on sales, client interest, or brand perception from photography?
Definitely. I think when somebody looks at our portfolio of projects that we've done, it's, people are visually based, right? So we have a ton. I mean, I don't know how many photos I have from you, but I would say probably 3,000, maybe, over all the projects that we've done. And every one of them is great, right? So that's a big body of work to be able to show what we've done in a very beautiful way. And frankly, doesn't require a lot of text because it's in pictures. So it really gives us a lot of credibility because we do great, beautiful projects and have had great clients and great vendor partners that participate. But being able to represent that visually, it just takes it to another level because people go, wow, that's awesome.
All right, next question. Do you ever repurpose the images for multiple marketing campaigns?
We do, and we let our manufacturer partners do that. So there's a lot of cross-purposing on that, which I think is important. And I think, we'll have probably 30 partners on this project, and they're non-competitive, and it's everything from the beautiful fire pits, to the sauna and everything in between. And if the sauna person is putting that out there, your images are great, and when people see it, then then we'll put a link to the site. They'll come back and they'll be able to see everything else in here. And I think that kind of teaser thing, I think, is super important because if people see an image that they like, they're likely to want to explore more. And we don't want to let them down, right? We want them to see everything that this house has to offer. And we find people come back and it's pretty fun. The other interesting thing is we have events during this big trade show that's here in Las Vegas. And a lot of people came to that are in the profession, architects, builders, designers. They just go, wow, this place is beautiful. And that's before we had photos taken. So afterwards, we'll send the link to the photos and say, hey, thanks for coming. Here's that photo gallery in case you missed any of the rooms or whatever. And they love it because they can go back and they go, oh, that's great. I remember that. I got to show my friend this view. And then ultimately, I think the pictures sometimes look better than it does in real life, right? So then they, that sort of gets anchored in their memory and they're like, that place was, it is awesome, but it looks even more awesome in photos. So that's fun.
All right, moving on. What advice would you give photographers looking to work with A&D clients?
I think the key really is to understand what it is they're trying to achieve. And, the photographer will likely have the requisite skills to be able to capture that, but they need to have a clear understanding of what are we getting, what's the usage, what's the story we want to tell, because that is really what drives everything. And I think from a relationship perspective, that's what's going to drive their business, because like you and I have worked together a lot, and I have such confidence that I don't need to really, we could have a quick conversation and be on the same page. And I think people, designers, architects, builders, they'll value that because time is money, right? The more that the more they know you can do it and not have to have protracted conversation every time, that's key. So that first meeting and really understanding that and walking through it and being very communicative. Are we getting this? Is that what you want? That's super duper important. And then, obviously it gets easier. That work product and that relationship can be levered as you go forward, because the last thing people want to do is start over with somebody fresh, because you got to go through that whole learning curve. So if you can get that dialed, that's a really great recurring business model.
Pay attention to that. Many clients don't want to start from the beginning again and hire somebody new, not knowing how they work. They want to work with the people that they know they can trust, that they can rely on. So when you're able to establish that by having good communication, good product, good workmanship, good rapport with your clients, that goes very, very far in the long run to keep that relationship and keep that business still happening for years to come, right? I think it's not just about the photography. I think it's also about the relationships we have with our clients. Being just a good person, having a good rapport with your clients, things like that, keeps them always in your pocket. So that way you're always going to be hired when they have projects, because they just know that, you know what, I can hire this person and I can count on them to get the job done. All right, next question. What are some mistakes you've seen photographers make that could have been avoided?
Yeah, I think when they don't ask enough questions, when they just have an assumption, oh, I'm coming in to shoot this like I would a listing for a house on Zillow or whatever. Sometimes those pictures can look great, but they don't necessarily work for some of the things that we do. So I think I think communication is really the key there. I think a lot of times these people are super talented, but they're not on the same page with what the person that's buying the photos wants to achieve. That's really, and it takes front end work. You guys are artists, you want to take shots, but that front end conversation, and sometimes that's kind of difficult getting that out of them. So I would say from a skill perspective, that's something, everybody's working on taking great photos, but the skill of getting the information out of the client to make sure that you clearly understand that is probably an undervalued process.
Yeah, like when I'm on there on site with the client, I'm making sure that before I start shooting, I have all the information I need either in mind, written down, or recorded somewhere in an email or whatever, to make sure I got what I need to get the job done. So that way I don't have to worry about asking questions over and over again. I know when we do the walkthrough of the project, I'm with them asking them, oh, do you need this? Do you need that? Does this matter? Do we need to focus on this area, or do we avoid that? Everything possible. So that way it makes my job easier, and I can just really be purposeful with how I'm capturing these images. Okay, next question. If a photographer wants to stand out in this field, what would you recommend they focus on?
Well, probably that, because honestly, you don't want to be a one-hit wonder where you're working with a new client and you never have any repeat business. If it was me, I would want to try to understand their business, make it easy for them to do business, and just make that. I mean, that's really the key. You want to deliver the results of what they're looking for and make it as painless as possible, because at the end of the day, if you make it easy on people and give them what they want, man, they're not going to go anywhere else. And that really is, that's it. But that sounds easy, but it takes a lot of work, right? You got to be a true professional in getting the images, and then also understand very thoroughly about what it is they want. But when you crack that code, I don't see, it's like me. I'm not going anywhere else. I'm calling Fraser. Unless Fraser says, I got a bigger name on the other line, then I got to go, no. But he's never done that to me, so I'm good.
All right, moving on. How has your experience been working with your photographer on past and current projects?
Yeah, we've done so many projects together. I always look forward to seeing you, because you're just a fun guy to be around. We're friends besides business things. But I also, like I said, I have confidence that I know you're going to get what I need, and really beyond. Because sometimes like the other night, we pushed you hard, and you were like, "What else do we need, man? What else do we need?" And I'm like, "Man, Jack, my son told me, hey, I think we got Fraser to his limit." And I'm like, no, because he's still asking, what else do we need? And I just love that, because it's like I said before, we got limited time. We got to get it. If we don't get it, and I'm like, but I never have that with you. You always you exceed my expectations, and that's getting harder and harder to do because you keep raising the bar. So maybe technology may be the way you do that, because you always have new tricks and stuff. But just have really appreciated our relationship, and you take it seriously, and you know how important it is to me. Plus, you're a professional and you want to do your best. So that's just great alignment. And sometimes I think, you never really know people and what they want. How motivated are they? And I think we just click, because I think we want the same thing. We want it to look great, want to have super results. And this is the way business works when it's right. You know what I mean? It makes it a pleasure to do business.
Pay attention to what he said there. We're friends. Initially, when I met him, we weren't friends. I was just completely brand new. But remember what I said, building that rapport, building that friendship, that relationship with each other helps to solidify future projects in the works, because they can trust you. They have this comfort level with you. So don't forget about that. Make sure you keep that in mind when you're out there shooting for your clients. It's not just a job, it's a relationship. Seriously, I wish I could have that with every one of my clients, where you just click, the communication is great, the relationship is great, they trust you, we trust them, and you just continue to just keep doing jobs together and producing amazing photos and building this relationship that'll last forever, right? So for you guys out there, I think pay attention to all these things that he's saying. It's so important, that relationship aspect. Of course, you need to be the photographer, you need to be the professional and deliver those images. But as you can see from what he's been saying, that confidence in that person, that relationship with that person goes hand in hand with also going and getting amazing photos. Well, guys, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was a lot of stuff we went over, a lot of questions and answers, but I think it's some good stuff for you guys out there who are trying to get into more the commercial end of photography and, doing bigger jobs, bigger projects, and just wanted to get a little behind the scenes of, what our clients out there are looking for. I wish I knew this kind of stuff back when I started, but now I do. And I think, why not share it with you guys? So in hopes that it'll help you guys, lock in some clients and build that relationship with them, that they can continue to call you and rely on you that you're going to be able to take on this project and get it done, no matter the scope, how big or small it is. And they can continue to call you for more future projects because you just are that person who can just get the job done and they don't have to worry about anything. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think it was pretty informative. If you have any questions, just like before, leave your comments down below. I'd love to answer any of them. And make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Lets me know that you guys enjoyed this type of content. I'll be putting together another type of these videos. One's going to be for an actual interior designer that I do a lot of projects for. So similar type of questions where we get to kind of get the ins and outs of what he looks for his project, for working with his photographers and things like that, in hopes that it'll help you guys out there for trying to get this type of clientele or this type of work to build up your career and your portfolio. So anyway, guys, thanks everybody for joining me today. And remember, keep on shooting. I'll see you next time.